Hello, I am Vicky Manitou Okas, and welcome to the Container Gardening Workshop. In this session, we are going to be putting together some tiny little gardens for my summer um, vegetables and herbs. So, there's some ideas for you to put together for yourself, and I'm going to explain how I do it as I go along. So, hey, join along and go plant your own tiny little gardens. And I invite you to join me at Delectable Tiny Gardens, the meeting place in support of people developing food security and resiliency. So let's get started. Today, we're going to be putting as many tiny gardens together as I can in this hour. I've got a lot planned, and I'm probably not going to get them all done today. But as I do the containers, I will film later what I'm doing and take pictures as everything is developing and growing and filling out the pots so that you can see the whole process as it unfolds. But realistically, it's going to take several weeks for these containers to develop to their full potential. Today, we're all right. This is the bucket that I bought at Goodwill, and I am going to put a little sage plant in here, and I'm going to plant a few more strawberries in here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up a little bit more, and we'll start with the sage plant. Let's see, I think we'll start with the sage plant over here. Okay, and I'm going to put a couple of strawberry plants over on that side. So this will be a full bucket with the sage growing up as a tall plant and the strawberries draping over the sides as it matures. So let's put some more soil in there. About another 2 scoops. Okay, excellent. Now, I do not want to disturb this plant very much. So what I'm going to do, instead of taking this completely out of there, I'm just going to tear around the top. Now this is a plant that I rooted from a grocery store, fresh produce cuttings, fresh cut produce. Just set that in there, and I'm going to fill around there and then put the strawberries in. And that fiber, the rest of that, in that one little bit of fiber pot can just stay in there. Yeah, I've got that about 4 inches from the back of the container, back of the bucket. And I've got the peat pot completely covered so that does not wick moisture away from the plant. Okay. Now, sage is one of them that I plant just a little bit deeper than where it's growing in the pot because that will actually, it's a mint family. It will actually develop roots along that stem a little bit. Okay. All right, and I've got a helper today. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of those rooted runner starts from the strawberries and add right in the front here. And they're in a milk crate that we're going to plant in a bit. Okay. And I'm going to get as much root as I can. Okay, this is loose soil in here. And that is nicely rooted in there, but it needs to come out. Okay. So see those are the roots that developed in that crate over the winter. And I've got another one. And this is developing a runner, so I'm going to cut that runner off. Okay, I'm going to cut that runner off so that all of that energy is going into that plant itself. Okay. This one has got some flowers on it, so I'm going to cut those off. This one's a little bit smaller, but I really don't want that much strawberry in here. And you don't really want that crown buried. Okay, now we're going to take scissors and make sure that all of that energy is going into the root development. Okay. Anna Marie, what? I only got one of those pots in that white thing. One of the pots of strawberries. It was looking too full when I tried to put two of them in. Okay, so in this one, that sage, I'm going to tip that way a little bit. Okay, this sage will grow up very quickly. Okay, and I'll keep an eye on this to keep those strawberries away from the sage until that sage gets established. And then we'll have a planting where the sage will grow up and I'll let the strawberries drape over the side. And that one's ready.
You've got more strawberries to plant. You've got...
All right. This is just an old bucket that is broken. It got tossed aside. The bottom is broken in it, so it drains nicely. It's not useful for a bucket anymore, but it's going to make a nice planter. So in this one, we got a hold of some hen and chicks starts. Okay, and I've got another sage plant that I want to put in here. So we're going to plant the sage in here and the hen and chicks. So let's get started. I'm going to plant this. Okay, so the sage I want to plant a little bit deeper than what it is in the pot. You see the roots are starting to develop out of the bottom. So I'm going to tear the top off of the and I'm going to fill in first thing I'm going to do is fill around in that sage. The mint family will, just to make sure that that's good and sturdy in there, the mint family will grow roots along the stem as long as it's not buried too deep. And sage is part of the mint family. but don't overdo it. Just a little bit. Okay. I had the hen and chicks in those fiber pots, and the fiber pots came apart. So we're gonna plant those in here. Yeah, hen and chicks makes a really nice ground cover, and they are tolerant to most conditions. Okay. Just kind of poke them in there. I'm going to plant the big one there. Okay. Now you don't want to plant hen and chicks too deep. Put that one there. But they're very tolerant to being repotted and replanted in most weather conditions. They're hardy to zone 5, maybe for zone 4. So they'll be nice. They're hardy for the winter in this pot. And so is the sage. So there we go. And the hen and chicks will fill in there. The sage will grow up and bush out a little bit. So there we go. All right. So, what do you think so far of those tiny little gardens that I'm putting together? Do you think that you can put together a tiny garden like that? Or maybe something that's better suited for you? No matter what you do, this is one way to develop food resiliency and security in your life, or at least learn how. So, what would you put together if you put together your tiny gardens? And hey, stay tuned, and we will put some more tiny gardens together and see what works for you. So, like, subscribe, and tell me what you want in your tiny gardens for yourself. Last summer, I successfully propagated some cuttings from my bay tree, from my big bay tree, and I overwintered these in a cool, cool but not freezing front entry room. And right now they are they're getting some really nice growth to them. So what I'm going to do is since I don't want both of these in this pot, I want one of them in this pot, the black pot, but not both of them. And I do want both trees. So I am going to take one of these bay trees out of here. I'm going to take both of those bay trees out of there. Okay. And repot both of them. One of them back into this black pot, and one of them in this basket. So let's get started with that. I'm going to start by putting this down and getting the basket ready. And this is I'm going to use the potting mix, compost, and sand mix in this container. Bay likes kind of a sandy, well-drained soil. It's a little bit drought tolerant, but not as drought tolerant as some of the other Mediterranean herbs. Okay, that's enough to get started. So very gently. So I'm holding my hand over that bay. Okay. And there's some weeds in there. Okay, so I'm going to take this one out. Sit that gently in there. Okay. Straighten this up. Okay. You see those nice roots in there? Okay. They're just starting to develop nicely. Bay is fairly tolerant to being transplanted, but you don't want to shock it too much. Okay. Put that upright. And go ahead and fill in a little bit more. Okay, just a little bit more. And all of these that I am planting, when I get them back outside, I will water them in really good and then fill in a little bit more if I need to. Make sure that's firmed in. Okay. Like that. Okay, now I want to add another herb to this. So I'm going to put a little bit of thyme, 3 thyme plants around the edges here. So that is the thyme that I propagated from the grocery store cuttings. There's the scissors. Looking for my scissors. So what I'm going to do is to encourage branching. I'm going to cut that off there. Okay, and I'm going to plant 3 of these. And I will intentionally keep this time very short until I am certain that the bay is stable. Like that. Put that down into that soil so that that peat pot is underneath the soil line. Okay. A lot of times the mint family is, you can cut it, you can take the fresh cuttings from the grocery store and propagate. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. Okay. All right. There is a little bay tree with some thyme, So that is a little Mediterranean garden. And as long as that comes into about 40 degrees in the winter with a little bit of light, this planting will be a nice stable planting because both the thyme and the bay need a light dormancy period, but neither one of them need to freeze. So there's that one. All right. The other bay tree, I'm going to set that right there. But the other bay tree, I'm going to plant right back in there again. Fill this back up with my potting mix. And I put the remnants of the peat pot in the bottom of that because that'll make a decent compost. Because they're biodegradable, they're not going to hurt anything. Nice healthy roots on that I'm going to spread out in there. I just set that root ball gently into the pot. And I'm filling in around it. Bay is pretty tolerant to being messed with. So I take it out of the pots on a regular basis and repot it and reposition it. Just make sure that you water it in really well and give it some light shade every time that you repot it. Bright light, but not direct light. And it usually snaps out of it pretty fast. Bay is difficult to propagate, but very easy to transplant. There you go. I'm going to take this outside and water that in, and if I needed to add a little bit more soil around it, I will. Yeah, so now I have 3 bay trees instead of just the one. This is one of my favorite projects of this workshop. This is my bittersweet basket that I made last year. I do not expect it to last more than one season, but I lined it with an old sheet. Okay. You see that's going to be very, very nice going forward. Okay. Then I put my mix in there of potting soil, organic potting soil, mushroom compost, and sand. And what I want to put in here is my onions that I am growing out for seed, the hybrid onion that I am growing out to produce seed so that I can create my own onion variety going forward. But that I'm going to put those in here, and that'll be very pretty in that. And then I'm going to fill that in with some salad greens. So let's get started here. Okay, here are the onions. They were starting to grow a little bit, so I went ahead and put them in a container with some soil. So we're going to gently pull these out of here. And you can see that's already, just in a week or two, they're already developing beautiful roots. Okay, so I'm going to plant these about 6 inches apart in here. Just pop that right back down in there. Okay, so we're going to plant these about 6 inches apart. And these will be the centerpiece for this planting. And it'll come up and produce beautiful, beautiful flowers. Okay, that will produce seed later in the summer. Okay, and that'll grow up very quickly. Now, I am going to put some parsley plants in here. Parsley, 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 there it is. Okay, so I've got my parsley plants. I'm going to trim this back to the best two and remove the top of that peat pot. And you can see there's roots growing out of the bottom of that already. Okay. So I'm going to put this one here. Okay. It's usually better to, the younger plants transplant easier than the older plants do. So it's usually better to transplant your plants small rather than a root bound in most cases. Okay, so this is a cabbage, and I've already trimmed that back to a single plant. And again, I'm going to plant that a little bit deep. And you can see how that fiber pot was starting to come apart. Okay, and I'm going to put 2 cabbage plants in here. These are a small cabbage and a short season cabbage. So I'm going to put one here. Cabbage transplants okay. It's not the easiest thing to transplant, but it's not terrible. And again, I'm going to take this peat from around that top and pop that down into right there. So I've got 2 cabbage plants buried just a little bit deep to give that a little bit more stability. Okay. All right. And I'm going to plant some kale in there. This is from one of the pots that disintegrated, and it's got nice roots, so we're going to try it anyway. And this is a purple kale. So I'm going to plant this one here. Okay, so I've got the onions for the centerpiece. I've got parsley and cabbage for beautiful plantings, and I'm going to put some kale in here. So gently pop that down into the soil. Make sure those leaves are up above. Give that bury it a little bit deep. Make sure all the leaves are exposed. Okay, so that will go ahead and fill out into a nice planting that will be quite pretty by in another 2 or 3 weeks. Now, one of the things I've got to watch for outside is we've got slugs. So this right here, that's slug damage on that leaf because that was growing outside. So I need to put in a bear trap in here or some diatomaceous earth or maybe some wood ash to keep those slugs from attacking those cabbage, because cabbage is a favorite of the slugs in this area. Thank you for joining with me today as we went through me putting together my tiny gardens for the summer. I hope you enjoyed the ideas that I came up with for myself. Maybe you can use some of them for you. If not, there's plenty of other things to use. And just remember that it'll be a few weeks before these gardens are producing, but it's always better to put the plants in the gardens small and let them grow into the pots than trying to fit a large plant into a tiny garden and crushing those roots. So let the roots develop into the pot instead of trying to conform them to what you have available. Start small, and it will be a much healthier tiny garden as you go forward. All right, thank you, and come and join us at Delectable Tiny Gardens. And then like and subscribe and tell me what you are putting together for your gardens in your life. All right, thank you, and join us next time.